So I have the great privilege to introduce the speaker this morning. You might not know him. His name is Ashley, but for me, he's Dad. I get to introduce my father this morning. Sabu, really, you honored me so much. I was so moved by what you said. And I want to say this, much of what Sabu said about me, it was invested into me by those two people sitting over there. My dad and my mum, they taught me to speak truth. They spoke truth. They saw what other people didn't see. They searched out truth. And they weren't afraid to go against public opinion, what other people thought, to stand for what was true and righteous and honorable. And I could share a lot about my dad, but while I was worshiping, I was reminded of one story that I'm going to share now. And I thought it probably happened when he was my age, because I was the age of my eldest daughter. So he was probably the exact same age as me now. And I was invited to I was asked to do my first public speaking. I must have been, 15, 16. And I had to speak to the parent body at my high school, address them on something. And I was willing to do it until about 30 minutes before the speech, and I completely folded. We were at home. I remember when we had to leave, and I started crying. I went into this anxious, hysterical state, and I put down my foot and I said, I'm not going to do this. They're going to have to find someone else. And I still remember my dad took me aside very calmly, and he spoke strength to me. And he quoted a story. It was a bit dramatic. It was just the fact that I was going to speak. But he compared my experience to the Brits having to face the Nazi war machine and the fear. And he quoted to me from Winston Churchill's speech about never give in, never give in. Now, the context of that speech is never give in when intimidation and fear is coming against you. Always stand for truth. Go and speak. Your voice matters. And I remember I went up and I did my first speech, and that changed everything for me. That was like a pivotal moment in my life where I felt I had a message of value and I could release it. And it was my dad. And so I have the great privilege of now saying, Dad, you've got something that we need. This is how family works. It should work. My dad has got something valuable. He has raised me in a wonderful way. He's a wonderful dad. He's an incredible grandfather. Kune and I will go to him for counsel and advice and wisdom, and I'm so honored to invite him to come speak to you today. So open your hearts to receive my amazing dad, Ashley.
I'm not really part of the digital age. Thanks, Jen. Is that all right? Can you hear me all right? Yeah. No. How do I how do I start? Yeah. Well, perhaps our Heavenly Father. I found a passage. Isn't it wonderful? It says, Jeremiah 3:19. The Lord says, Israel, I wanted to accept you as my child and give you a delightful land, the most beautiful land in all the world. I wanted you to call me Father and never again turn from me. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? There's our Heavenly Father. You know, I'm quite jealous of, I've seen these speakers, they come up and they've got one of these things, they put it up here, little screen, then they wander off here and they talk to you, and they come back and they have a quick peek and then they come back. I'd still be switching it on. So excuse me if I just sort of have to page through a couple of notes which I've got here. Yeah, my dictionary defines father as a male parent, two words. But of course there are other fathers as well. We've got stepfathers, and then we've got people who come in and act as fathers. And there's also a term of endearment. You know, when Elisha saw Elijah taken up in the chariot, he said, oh my father, you are gone." He's not, of course, the genuine father, but it's a term of respect. So, and then, of course, there's the father of modern medicine and that kind of thing. So there's a kind of father, but I'm focusing on the father who's there, hands-on type of thing. Father's Day is only about 110 years old. It's not like Mother's Day. It was started, as many other things are in America, and gradually spread throughout the world. But right at the beginning, let me give you my academic qualification to stand here and talk to you. Won't take long. There, I told you it wouldn't take long. But, you know, I'm only 2 years short of 80. I've been married for 54 blessed years. I've been a father for over 50 years, and I've been a grandfather for 18 years. So, you know, I have seen a little bit of life, and perhaps it's that's what I'm going to speak from. God, when He created man, He gave him stewardship over the world. He said, look after the world. I'm giving you control over the world. Steward it. And, you know, have we been good stewards over everything that God gave us? I don't think so. When I look at what's happening in the climate, we were talking about the carbon dioxide being pumped into the air, climate change, the pollution in the seas, animal species which have become extinct. How well have we stewarded the world that our good Father gave to us? But of course, to fathers, it comes right down to the family. Fathers are stewards, and they've got to steward their family as well. One of my favorite books in the Bible is Proverbs. You can open it, you don't have to read the whole thing, you don't even have to read a whole chapter. You know, you can read one verse. Let me just give you a couple of examples, just random examples. Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Yeah. How many times have we shunned good advice and been foolish, and then regretted it? Or 18:17. The one who states his case first seems right, till the other one comes and examines him. We tend to say two sides to every story, don't we? It's true. And certainly I've seen that true in my life. And another one which is very true. 26:20. Without wood a fire goes out. Without gossip quarreling stops. These are just little gems. And you know, they are true. And the thing is, we need to absorb them and take them into our lives. When I was small, still single-figured age, you know, my dad, we lived in Rhodesia then, as it was called. It's not the Rhodesia anymore, but his job took him out into the bush quite frequently, And he had an old 410 shotgun which he took with him. And every now and again he'd bring back a guinea fowl which we'd had for supper the next day. I, as a typical little boy, loved the sort of thought of this gun, you know, cowboys and Indians and guns and all that sort of thing. And I desperately wanted to shoot this gun. And then one day when we were out of town, I managed to persuade my father to let me shoot this gun. And so I tucked it under my shoulder. He acquiesced to my request. And I was allowed to shoot at a post. And this gun was under my... He told me how the safety catch worked and the trigger. And I squeezed this trigger. You know, so I looked along the barrel. And I squeezed the trigger. Bang! Oh! What he'd forgotten to tell me, there was a recoil in a gun. I suppose, you know, it's a small gun. An adult hardly feels it. But me, I had a black eye for a week after that. You know, I was lucky. My eye only was black for a week, but if I had it in the wrong place, you know, I might have had some damage. I might have been blinded for the rest of my life. You see, Father forgot to teach me something before I fired that gun. And Proverbs is a bit like that. We need to know. God is telling us what is dangerous in life. He's telling us what's going to hurt us. He's telling us what is good for us to do. He's telling us we don't know things. He's going to teach us. Listen to what he says to us. We don't know. We don't even know what we don't know. So the Bible is a wonderful, wonderful guide. And I love Proverbs. And so I'm going to start at the beginning with Proverbs 18:2. It says, "He who finds a true wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." And sorry, I get quite choked up. That's true. That's true. You know, I've found a good wife and I've obtained favor from the Lord. He really has. He really has been favorable to me. Mind you, ladies, before you get too sharp, remember that it also says, a contentious wife is like a dripping roof. And if you've got a nagging wife, it's better to go and sleep on the roof. But if you've got a good wife, you are blessed beyond measure. So, right back in Genesis 2, God said, a man will leave his mother and father and go off and find a wife, and the two will become one flesh. The two will become one flesh. Back to the unity. Ian spoke about unity earlier. Jenny spoke about unity last week. She said it's like unity of the brothers is like oil flowing down over Aaron's beard. Lovely unity. And that's what we need. And man and wife, husband and wife, unity. It's like oil flowing down Aaron's beard. So I see not father, just father. It's mother and father. And Spoo also mentioned mother. Mother and father as one. All right, they've got different roles in the family. But they are one, just as God the Father and God the Son are one. They haven't done the same things. They're different, but they're the one. And it's that unity. And I think that unity in a family is also terribly important. I've got a couple of things I'll say. Some of them you might say, "Oh, whoops." But you know, the last thing I want to ever be is judgmental, because I've got lots of things. the skeletons in the closet they're talking about. I'm just speaking from experience and from things which I've discovered. And many of the things which in my past, I'd rather they weren't in my past, but they're there nevertheless. So I'm not going to point fingers, but I'm going to point out perhaps one or two lessons that I have learnt. So, where am I now? Here I am. Ephesians 5:24 says, now, as the church submits to Christ, so wives also should submit to everything in their husbands. And I know in this modern age that we live in, that verse upsets some wives. Why should I submit to my husband? You know, I'm as good as he is, and we've got this thing of gender equality all over the place. But you know, those ladies, if they speak like that, I think are forgetting Ephesians 5:25, which says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And he goes on a bit further in 1 Corinthians 13 to explain what love is. And one of the phrases he used, he says, love doesn't think of itself, doesn't put itself first. So if a husband is going to put his wife first in everything he does, the wife would be silly not to submit to him, because what he's doing is wanting the best thing for her. So husbands and wives, they model for their children, fathers and mothers together, not just the one. I know I speak as a married man with a wife, and we've raised children together. And I do feel hard, it's hard for ladies who are single mothers, not for their own fault. Some of them, their husbands have had to go off because in this country particularly to look for work, and they're having to be mother and father in the home. It's hard. So I know I'm speaking to families, but I do appreciate that there are many people who are unable to have a father in the home. And often I think it would be good if a brother or an uncle or whoever it might be, or a friend, even your boss at work, could step into the home sometimes and act as a father. Where's my next one? Yes, here we are. Back to Proverbs. It says, where am I? Somewhere. Back to Proverbs, yes. Excuse me as I think a bit. Once I met a lady, and she said to me, she doesn't know what to do. Her teenage son, he just bunks out at night from the home. She was a single mother. And, he'd come back at all hours whenever he wanted to. She said, I can't stop him. I said, well, lock his door. She said, I do, but he then just climbs out the window over the fence and away. And I don't know what to do. And I felt sorry for that lady. I said, haven't you got somebody you can get into your home, a man who, because it is easier for teenage sons, particularly for a man, to discipline them. But in another case, when I spoke to a lady, she said, my daughter, teenage daughter, when she doesn't want to go to school, she just stays in bed, doesn't get up. And I can't do anything about it. I said to her, I tell you what, next time that happens, give me a ring. So sure enough, it wasn't too long after that, I get a phone call. It's that lady. She says, my daughter's in bed, she won't come to school. So I said to the secretary, come on, into the car, and off we went. And to the house. And I don't know how we got in. The mother probably left the door open. Anyway, we went in, and I sent the secretary up to her bedroom. And there was a bit of a wait and a bit of a shuffling and going on. Eventually, anyway, out came this girl dressed in school uniform with the secretary behind her. And I said, into the car. And in the way, taking her to school, I looked in the rear view mirror. There was her face was a picture, believe me. But she never did that again. She never did that again. You know, we hear the proverb spoken to us, spare the rod and spoil the child. There's no doubt about it. You know, discipline is essential, and I would say to particularly to single mothers, because I might be wrong here, but I think possibly if a mother is single and she's got small children, hard to discipline. You might be worried about losing their love, but you know, you won't lose their love. In fact, you will gain their respect. And when they get to the teenage stage, they're not going to bunk out of the window and go, because they will respect the discipline that you've given them over the years. I think that's important. You've got to start it right at the beginning. And Proverbs is right again. Bring up a child in the way he should go, and when he's older, he'll never forget it. It's Proverbs is lovely, isn't it? Okay, where was I? Yes. The father figure, I think, it's important for presence, that the father is present in the home. I know I've mentioned single mothers, it's not possible, but presence is important. A lot of fathers are in the home, but they're not at the home. They can be out on business, they can be this, they can be that, and they hardly ever see their children. And I would say you've got to give your children time. That is most important as a father. You've got to give them time. But that time must be well spent. You've got to be a good mentor as well. On one occasion I was on train duty. This was up in the northern Transvaal as it was in those days, now Limpopo. I was on train duty going into Pretoria from the countryside, and I was sitting in a whole bunch of youngsters, teenage youngsters, and there was one in the compartment, and then the ticket collector was coming down the way, and one of the youngsters got up and went out, and we had the ticket collector came by, collected the tickets, the cash or whatever it was, and 10 minutes later this youngster came back, and I said to him, where have you been? He said, I was in the toilet. I said, well, the ticket collector came through. Did you see him? He said, no, my dad told me when the collector comes I must go and hide in the toilet, then I don't have to pay. And I think, what is that teaching the child? Can that father ever teach the child honesty? Can he? You see, presence is one thing, but also the correct presence is what is important, that he can model that. But children don't always want their father to be present. I mean, my eldest son was a scout, and every now and again I'd drop him off at the scouts, and there'd be other scouts around waiting for the scoutmaster to come. And at one stage I bought a little second-hand scooter, you know, these things with wheels this size, and putt around the place. And I normally dropped him off in the car, and then one day I said, come on, I'll take you to Scouts, and put him on the back of this little scooter, and off we went. When we got within 2 blocks of the place, he said, stop, Dad, stop. I stopped. He said, I'll walk from here. I'm quite sure if I'd had a big Harley Davidson that made a noise, he would have wanted the presence of his father, but not in that. He didn't want me there. He didn't want me there at all. And then, of course, another case in my younger son. One Saturday evening, and he wanted to go with his friends to Margate because there was some fun fair on at the beach there or something. So I said, right, you come, I'll pick you up at 9 o'clock and take you home. Anyway, I went a bit earlier, and the grapevine had told me something. And when I went into the pub and hauled him out in front of his friends, he wasn't very happy at all. My presence wasn't appreciated one scrap at that point. But anyway, there it is. Fathers and their presence. Another lesson which comes out of the Bible, Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer quiets anger, but a harsh one stirs it up. The best home is a happy home. You've got to have a happy home if you're going to have children and bring them up well. And also, Paul says somewhere, don't provoke your children. You've got to, and another lesson, James, in his letter, he says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Now, I think all of us, sometimes we get hot under the collar, don't we? And we shout, and then we provoke our children. You know, I was giving my daughter a driving lesson at one stage. Liz reminded me of this. And I know God says, don't fear anything. But anyway, I must confess I had fear. And I think I did lose my cool a few times. And it ended up with Jenny getting out of the car, slamming the door and saying, I'm not going to go with you ever again. Oh, yes. But if you can keep a quiet and gentle attitude in the home, isn't it a wonderful thing? That peace, the peace of God, isn't it lovely? And so I would also say that's something we should try to cultivate in our lives, that sense of peace and gentleness, and slow to anger, and don't let the sun go down on it. It's very true. I found that also in my life. But you know, it doesn't only apply in the home, it applies everywhere. But if you can model it in the home, your children will pick it up and they will model it in their lives as well. But really the most important lesson I want to sort of put out as a father today, if I can be a father to the house in a way, and it's something which concerns me, and it sort of follows on a little bit from what Donna was talking about in the conference we had, those of you who were here. She likened our lives as ponds, fish ponds, and we are the fish in that. And the devil comes along and he drops in a hook with bait on it. He's fishing. He wants to catch us. And he's got to use a bait. Remember the three temptations that Jesus faced. He faced in the desert when he was led into the desert. He faced the temptation of fame, he faced the temptation of power, and he faced the temptation of fleshly lusts. Those are the three temptations which the devil used against Jesus, and he uses against every one of us. I might be wrong, but I think that the devil's most powerful temptation is sex. You know, when I was young, I was growing in the digital age, and all this mass media and everything hadn't come in. I didn't have a television in my home when I grew up. We had the old radio you turned on and you waited for 5 minutes before it warmed up, and so on. And we didn't have as much as we have today. And one day when I was about 13, 14, whatever it was, I came into my bedroom, and there sitting in my bed was a little book, Facts of Life, you see. I think it was hard for parents to talk to their children about the facts of life. I must say I share my parents' feeling on that. Anyway, so there was this little book. I'm a grandfather now. I think I can speak more openly. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And I discovered that my elder brother and my elder sister before me had also had that little book put on the bed. And I thought, yeah, well, I knew that the stork didn't bring babies. Why did I need this? Yeah? But it's not the facts of life. It's the sexuality we see today that bothers me. And why do I say I think the devil's greatest weapon against us is sex? Really. We've all got hormones. Every single one of us has got hormones. If we didn't, we wouldn't have any dads and mums anyway, would we? The devil can't create anything. The devil perverts what God has created. And he created sex as a beautiful, wonderful, lovely thing, but to be used in the right way. And why? It's powerful in the Bible. There are so many warnings against the misuse of sex. You all know about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. It was destroyed. Why? Sexual perversion. We know the stories about David and Bathsheba. We know the stories about Samson and Delilah. And Jesus said, the only reason for divorce is adultery. Sex. Joshua, when he was told to go into the promised land, God said to him, destroy the people there. You think, it's hard. Everybody, wipe out fathers, mothers, children, wipe them out. That's a bit hard, surely. But they were practicing Baal worship. You know what Baal worship is? Baal worship. Sex orgies happen in Baal worship. They are dancing around the altar where there's a big wooden pole in the shape of a male organ, and then the babies born are offered into the fire as sacrifices. Live babies into the fire. That's Baal worship. God said, wipe it out. And then, men, don't go and marry some of the ladies there who are practicing that, because they're going to tempt you, like Eve tempted Adam long ago, to go back to Baal worship. And I am your father. As I said at the beginning, I long to be your father. I want to give you the best and most beautiful land in the whole world. But you've got to let me be your father. And you can't go on to Baal worship and things like that. So wipe them out, he said. But as I said, I don't want to be judgmental to anybody. But Jesus was never judgmental either. You know, in his ancestry, his great, whatever it is, grandmother was a prostitute. And one of his other great grandmother, she was a Moabite. So in his ancestry, he had the people who he warned against. You see, there's redemption. And every time you feel an arrow of condemnation coming against you, just put the cross up in front of you. Because that's where the condemnation goes. It's not on you. But we feel it, don't we? The devil wants to put it onto us. And he's quite successful in some cases, as I'll tell you just now. So I just want to warn everybody about it, because I've seen how sex destroys careers and it destroys lives. And I mentioned some of the others, some of those biblical ones just now, but just think of contemporary thing. I don't know, many of you have probably heard of Jimmy Swaggart. He had a thriving international evangelical ministry until one day he fell for the temptation and had an affair. And his ministry just went, it's never recovered. He still tries a little bit, but it's not the same, never has been. Ravi Zachariah, a wonderful Christian apologist, very intelligent man. He used to go and debate with the student unions of the top universities in the world, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, who's Dawkins too, you know, the evolutionists. He had these debates. He used to go into the Arab countries, and he was highly respected as a man, an intelligent man, and a Christian apologist. He published books and so on. At the end of his life came to light. He had a sexual sin. Silence. Everything, all that good work gone. Why? Sexual sin. In the area where we live, one of the pastors there, he's had to leave his church. This is just in the last, since we've been living up in Gurubi. He had to leave his church. Why? Fell for temptation. The hook. And we've probably been reading about Donald Trump sometime. He's been sitting in a court case over some liaison he had with a porn star years ago. I don't know what's going to come of that, but nevertheless, it's you know, what does it do to a person? What does it do to their marriage? What does it do to their career? So it's there, and we need to know what the bait is so we don't take it. The devil goes around like a roaring lion seeking who to devour. But I think somehow he could have added in a little bit there. He could have said, but before he roars. I don't know if you've seen films of a lion on the hunt. Have you seen these videos of a lion hunting with these wild animals? They don't roar to begin with. They're sneaky. They hide in the long grass. They go behind the bushes. They don't want to be seen. They don't want their prey to know that they're even there, that they even exist. And they sneak up. And at the last moment they can let out a roar as they leap. By that time, it's too late. You've got to be aware of the bait dangling, and it's sneaky bait, and it tempts us. It tempts us. What are some of the things that happen that we see? I get furious when on my phone, I don't know why it is that artificial intelligence or whatever it is, thinks that people who like to read the rugby results and everything else love to look at semi-naked ladies and all that. Because I get this advert that says the worst dressed woman in the thing, you know, and it's just a little bit of tantalizing view of a dress which is not quite right or something. And it's just asking the man to push that and see it. Then I refuse to take that bait, because I would bet a month's salary on that. Salary, pension now. I'd love to have a salary, but I'd bet on that. That one will just take me a little bit further. And if I went to that one, a little bit further. And then probably I'd be given a porn site or something. And I think after a while I'd be led into pornography. That's what it's after. And pornography is a massive and terrible industry. And it destroys marriages. And it starts with that little advert. Be careful, folk. I think we don't think about it. And even the ordinary adverts. You know, I was looking at one on the TV the other day, some lady rubbing on cream, a very sort of sensuous type of advert. Huh? 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 Why? I mean, it's just, you know, there's that temptation. They're getting at our hormones, and they want to sell. Have you ever looked at the motor cars? You know, all the all right, the big tough ones that go anywhere. That might be the macho man. I don't know if he appeals to you ladies. I don't know, but the flirty little car that's always got a lady in it, and a fancy lady. It's as they always said, you know. When I was younger, and they used to sell these E-type Jaguars and things, they used to advertise them with a bikini lady sort of drooped over the bonnet, as if that was meant to catch you as well. But it probably did. That's why they did it. It's there all the time, but always think about, why is it like that? Why is it like that? Emancipation of women. It's my right to do things. Don't tell me what is good and what's bad. I'm able to do it. And there are so many of these things which come at you subtly. I would just suggest that if you're aware that there is something more sinister behind it, it's going to be much easier to avoid taking the bait. Much easier. And I had one, yes, the one which really worries me is this woke. I don't even know if I can define it properly, but this idea of Cape Town is going to be the what's it called? The gay capital of the world. Oh, Lord, please spare our country that. Same-sex marriage. It's not marriage. I'm insulted if I hear that a man has married a man, or a woman and a woman. Yeah. I love the story of a friend of mine where we live. He's also my age, and he was organizing a dinner for a talk, and he booked a place at one of the clubs there, and he went into the kitchen, and there were these two ladies, and he said, "Oh, hello, ladies. You know, I believe you do the cooking and serving." Oh, yes, they did. And then they said, one of them said to him, "Yeah, we're married." He said, "Congratulations. What do your husbands do?" Yeah, a bit of a silence after that. But you know, it's wrong. It's not what the Bible tells us to do. And there are traps. It's a trap. And you know, what seems right now, young people, what might seem right to you now, you know, you may end up paying for that in 30 years' time. You don't know. You know, I said at the beginning, I know I have seen some things, and I know that that has happened. God has been good to me. I have been spared it. I'm married to a wife, not a partner. And I'm blessed because of that. Really, I am. You know, I know a lot of people, they have been caught by some sexual misdemeanor in their lives. And I speak again from experience. When I was, again, you know, younger than my grandson here, I was in the church choir, and possibly angelic looking little lad, I don't know. But the priest took a liking to me, and I was sexually abused. And you know, I never said anything. It was his sexual desire that came out, and for years I said nothing. And then one day in this church, not that long ago, I was convicted. And when I got home, you know, I said to my beloved wife, sit down, I've got to tell you something. Please don't say anything, just listen. And I said to her, you know, there's not another living person who knows this secret. I've been carrying guilt and shame for about 65 years, 70 years. And then I told her, you know, I was so ashamed of this abuse and the ramifications of the abuse. I couldn't say anything. Guys, watch out for your wives. They've got minds like razors. Eh? She didn't condemn me or anything. She just said, you know, I've always felt there was something you never wanted to tell me. She said, you know, when certain things came up, you sort of ducked the issue, you changed the subject or something. She picked up something, but she never knew until I told her recently in my life. And I said, you know, I've prayed to God. I said, God, I forgive that man. I want to forgive him. I don't want to hold anything against him. I want to forgive him. She said, you know what the problem is? You haven't forgiven yourself. You haven't forgiven yourself. And if there's anybody here who feels that they've stepped over the line sometime in their past, you know, Jesus died on the cross. We took communion today. Jesus died on the cross. He came to set the prisoners free. I had imprisoned myself with my guilt and my shame for all that period. But I've been set free. And whoever finds a good wife finds a good thing and gets God's favor. I've got a beautiful family. I love my family. I'm just so proud of my family. God has blessed me. As a father, I'm just blessed. Thank you for listening to me.